Welcome back. Of course, we've been talking about jets, private jets, presidential jets, and of course, Ibom Airline jets. Buses are the subject of conversation. And we've had here on set, we have our guest here. He's a socio-political analyst and also former supervisor for works and transport in local government area. Peter Paulinus, welcome to Political Spectrum.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here once again.
Wow, great. Of course, we've also had Patrick Edeke, who is a journalist, a PR expert, and a special assistant to the governor on electronic media. He joins us online. And before we went on that break, we were talking about the cost and how much the new presidential jet would cost us. Of course, Patrick was talking about the issue of the size of the presidential fleet. So let me bring Mr. Peter Paulinus to the conversation.
Okay.
11 jets, 3 of them have been seized by court order in France. A dealing between the Ogun State government and some Chinese firm went sour, and right now some of our aircraft are trapped somewhere in France. But the main issue is, why do we even need 11?
Well, for me, before coming to the aspect of talking about numbers, I would like to say what happened with presidential fleet or jets far away. France is quite unfortunate. I would like us to look at it from a patriotic point of view without actually bringing in some political coloration. As a Nigerian, I feel so embarrassed. As an African, I feel so embarrassed. I feel that we have not yet come of age. I feel that we still need a whole lot to do to put our house in order, rather than washing our dirty linens and spread it outside for the world to continue to mock at us, for the world to continue to see Nigeria and African countries as a third world country. So looking at it from that patriotic point of view is something I would say is quite unfortunate. It is not something any Nigerian, irrespective of political, learning or affiliation, should celebrate, because an embarrassment to the entire country is an embarrassment to entire Nigerians. But having said that, coming to talk about number, for me, I don't see anything wrong with number. So far, you have what it takes to maximize it, because I want to believe that the country should not just acquire jets for the purpose of acquiring them. There should be reason, there should be some rationale behind the acquisition. So if the rationale has never been right, then you have problem with the number.
How do you mean?
This is what I mean. If instead of you having 1 or 2 jets or aircraft, and put the remaining resources in other sectors of the economy, because while talking about economy, we are not just looking at one subsector. We are not just looking at one, industry. You are looking at the sum total of, activities or economic activities happening within the country. So that calls to management of resources. Yeah. And of course, you will agree with me that in trying to, actualize your visions or goals, then there should be that need for resource allocation.
So if we were to have, say, a $1 trillion economy, it would be okay to run with any amount of jet that we can afford it.
The problem of Nigeria is not that lack of resources. This country, is very rich. The problem is a leadership problem in a larger spectrum. But for me as an individual, I don't always talk about leadership, because when you talk about leadership, for me, it amounts to, a portion of blames and shifting of the ball. I look at it as a Nigerian problem, or what I technically term as a followership problem, because the people we have as our leaders are part of us. They are our brothers and sisters, our uncles and aunts. So they don't just fall from the sky to become the president or the governors or what have you. These people are recruited from us. So what actually happens is, while getting there, they manifest the Nigerian, content. if you allow me to use that word. So for me, it is not a leadership problem. So that people will not say it is the governor's problem, it is the president that is not doing well, it is the councillors, it is this. It is a Nigerian thing. A typical and average Nigerian, you know, is something that it needs real orientation. So it's a management of resources. We are in the part of the world where we feel that the resources are for some certain individuals. And that has been the problem from national down to the state. For God's sake, why should the entire country spend, you know, the resources that should be put in fixing other things to make the economy, you know, booming into a certain sector that benefits just a handful of individuals at the expense of the generality of the Nigerian people?
But then again, when you look at it, these people don't just use these assets. It's they embark on statecraft. They embark on international negotiations that benefit the generality of Nigerian people. So when Mr. President, for instance, goes to COP28 or 29 rather, and is able to ink a deal, say for instance, that will help boost our power sector or help boost our oil production sector or any other aspect or area of the economy, that's a plus.
By us going with 11 jets, is that what you mean? For me, it's still a no. You know, as an African, we are still struggling with this identity crisis. We want the world to take us serious, while we in ourselves, we are not serious with ourselves. We want the world to take us serious, while we in ourselves, we are failing to do what is right. And that leads to some level of hypocrisy and sincerity of purpose. We want the world to see Nigeria as the giants of Africa, while the very giant of Africa is not doing what it ought to have done for its survival and well-being. Rather, it wants to do a thing that the world will say, is doing well, when you are not doing well. That's the problem. So for me, I am still of the view that governance should be pro-people. Governance should be people-oriented. Governance should be about the bottom up, getting to know what the people want, getting to satisfy the people.
Let me bring Patrick up. Patrick, we talked about managing the presidential jet, and we've angled it from the economic point of view, whether we even need it. But then let's go back to that issue of management. We looked at Ibom Air. Ibom Air seems to be doing well. Should we say Ibom Air should manage the presidential fleet? What's your take?
On a lighter note, it would be a bad idea because, yes, if you look at it intentionally, you will discover that while the Nigerian state was struggling to have an airline, a functional airline, Akwa Ibom State had a functional airline in Ibom Air, and it is enjoying a steady growth. At that point, I might want to, digress a little bit or disagree a little bit with the gentleman in the studio when you say it is a Nigerian issue of mismanagement, because we have seen leaders in our Akwa Ibom State that has changed the status quo. What am I trying to say in essence is that the conceptualization of the airport was done by an Akwa Ibom State, a former governor. His successor came in, built it. The successor to the successor came in, brought in the Ibom Air, and then you see continually it is growing. It means that we can have leaders who will do well and not do what he characterized as a Nigerian problem. But it's just a little skew from what he was saying. So if you look at what is happening right now in Akwa Ibom State, most of the things that is happening in Akwa Ibom State is what the Nigerian state should take a cue from and copy from. Particularly, like I said earlier before the man came to the studio, like the MRO, there is no airport in Nigeria that has a functional MRO. Akwa Ibom State is building a very functional and viable MRO, which you know definitely Nigeria and sub-region down here to Akwa Ibom. Going back to Ibomre, like you said, if you recall, Ibomre started operations on the 7th of June 2019, just about 4 or 5 years ago. As of today, it is still the only surviving functional state-owned functional airline, not aircraft. There are some states that have one aircraft, but this is not an aircraft. Functional airline running without any hitch whatsoever. In fact, let me even spook you here. Do you know that when His Excellency Pastor Omo Obasieno, the governor of Akwa Ibom State, came into power, because of his entrepreneurial acumen, he even made sure that the personal jet or the private jet of the governor, you can hire it if you can afford it. It is for commercial. That's to tell you, he's somebody who understands what it means to bring in IGO, to bring in money to the state. So most of the things you see, like I said, like I want to say, it's leadership as far as I'm concerned, because who is a leader? What is leadership? Leadership is a movement. Leadership is taking the people to where they ought to be, not necessarily where they want to be, where they need to be and ought to be, and they will follow you. That is exactly what is happening in our Bible.
Okay. Let me allow Peter to throw in a word or two with regards to what Patrick has said.
Well, I give it to him because I learned to respect people's view. But it's part of the problem we are talking about. The fact that you want the outsiders to believe that Akwa Ibom State has an, a functional aviation sector.
Don't we have a functional?
Does not mean that Akwa Ibom State is functional. This is what I mean. How many Akwa Ibom people are benefiting, are flying with the Ibom Air? So you don't just pick up a segment of an economy, a segment that has nothing to do with the generality of the people. There is a segment that the masses or the greater number of the citizens are not benefiting from, and project it and give it a very high level of publicity and media hype, and you take that to mean that Akwa Ibom State is working well?
But you cannot argue against the success of the airline itself.
Well, do you want us to discuss an economy? And do you want us to talk to ourselves, with sincerity of purpose? What benefits is the Ibom Air, bringing to the common man of Akwa Ibom State origin?
It's generating employment, it's generating tax and revenue to the government.
Well, this is why I said our problem is a leadership problem. Because even we citizens, we don't allow the leaders to work. If, for an instance, you are having about approximately 7 million people living in Akwa Ibom State, but the origin, the indigenous and the residents, about 7 million, and you have about 50 persons working with the Ibom Air, is that a success? That's my point of view. We should allow our leaders to work. Enough of praise singing. As far as we know, our leaders are still, struggling to meet up with the fundamental essence of governance. They have not there yet. So enough of saying we have a governor that is doing well, that is that and that. If we can speak truth to powers, the leaders will sit, the leaders will adjust, the leaders will begin to do the right thing. But when we believe that leaders presenting or providing some essential services that are not even sufficient to drive the economy, to ensure welfare of the citizens, we now feel that those leaders that are doing us a favor, then we'll continue to have the problem that we are having. So in my take, the fact that the government is buying, an aircraft to drive the Ibom Air that benefits people, mostly the elite class, whether in the private sector or in the government sector, at the expense of the greater number of Akwa Ibom people, is not a success. So we should sit down and begin to drive policies and programs that will mean well and guarantee the welfare of the greater number of persons. That is when and only when we can say that the state is functional. Not just Ibom Air. The entirety of Akwa Ibom State is not about Ibom Air. People in the rural setting, they don't know about Ibom Air. They are not benefiting from Ibom Air. So that is what we are saying. that the fact that the government is trying to develop the aviation sector does not mean they should abandon other critical sectors that has direct bearings with the generality of the people.
Okay, quickly, let me let Patrick chip in a word, and then we try to wrap up this conversation. We have very little time left. Peter raised the issue of other sectors of the economy. Of course, the focus of our conversation today is the aviation sector generally. But then, let me let you 30 seconds or a minute to chip in a word.
30 seconds will be a great disservice on my side because of some of the very weighty concerns.
We are out of time.
There. I actually thought we were talking about Ibom Air today, and the focus was Ibom Air.
That is the focus.
I'm quite excited that Mr. Peter had decided to go to other sectors. It just shows that it's either Mr. Peter traveled out and he's just coming to Akwa Ibom State, or Mr. Peter have not been listening or seeing what is happening in Akwa Ibom State. Since he has decided to branch off, I want to really bring him to speed, because sometimes information, credible information, transforms you credibly. It is no doubt that he has agreed that Ibom Air is doing exceedingly well. But you see, when a purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. Why do we have Ibom Air to start with? It is a conceptualization of the past administration that they are building the economy of Akwa Ibom State in the model of Dubai. And if you look at Dubai, what was the first thing they got working? It was the Emirates. Why? So that you can fly into Dubai and do business in Dubai and fly out from Dubai. That was one of the things that made Dubai very unique. That probably you might not even need to stay in the hotel, just fly in as long as you have that access to fly in and fly out. But that being said, it is not correct for Mr. Peter to say that maybe other critical sectors of the economy in Akwa Ibom State has not been given due attention. This is a fallacy, and I have to correct you. Now, right now, since you say it's 30 minutes, I don't know, I think I need to come to your
We're almost out of time.
In this Akwa Ibom State, in Akwa Ibom State right now, we've just finished, just let me say I just finished, because let's say an entrepreneur, there's what we call the Ibom-led leadership the entrepreneur program, where about 800 persons have been trained in the entrepreneurial aspect and given a startup loan of 500,000 naira. As we speak right now, there are about 800 women right now under the training that are going to, after their trainings. This training is Lagos Business School standard. They bring in people from Lagos Business School to train these entrepreneurs in bookkeeping, in business keeping, and everything. After that, they are going to get a startup loan of 750,000 naira. Now, the Excellency has not stopped even in the education sector. As we speak right now,
Mr. Patrick, I will definitely hold on, Mr. Patrick. Hold on, Mr. Patrick. I'll bring you back. I'll bring you back to have this conversation again. We're going to have this conversation again. Just hold on. But then I can't give you 30 seconds because we're out of time. We actually are out of time. But the truth of the matter is that whether we like it or not, there are some areas that the government have been working. So I travel a whole lot, and across the country, there are very few states that have the road infrastructure than we do. So we can't say that everything is all dark and gloom. But let me allow you 10 seconds.
That's not what we are saying. Going by what Mr. Patrick is saying and what we are saying, it simply shows that our leaders have to get their priority right.
Okay.
Because some of the things he's talking about shows that the government or the people in government are not in tandem with reality on ground. So we are having issues of mispriority. Government are not getting their priority right. It talked about when the issue of purpose is not known, and that you don't have one purpose at the expense of the generality of purpose. You compromise the system.
To his credit, he was talking about the template upon which the
which is the aviation. I am saying here that the Akwa Ibom State, acquire more buses is a misplaced priority. Because there are other critical sectors.
It's the company that is acquired, not as if all of
Well, I understand exactly what we are saying. Okay. But I am saying, for we to have a government that are people-oriented, for we to have a government that works for the people and the welfare of the people are taken into considerations, then the government and all other sectors, including the media, must allow the people to tell ourselves the truth.
Okay.
That has been our disservice. We don't allow the truth to be spoken. We fight it. we promote an agendas, hypocrisy, you know, and lip service at the expense of the real thing, and that is what is keeping Nigeria and other African countries. And I continue to keep them to be the third world countries.
Mr. Patrick,
and it's quite unfortunate.
This is how far we can go.
Thank you very much.
My producers are telling me I have to get out of the studio. So, of course, we had a very engaging conversation with Mr. Patrick Polyneus, who is a socio-political analyst and author and former supervisor for works and transport in the local government. And joining us online was Patrick Ideke, journalist, PR expert, special assistant to the governor on electronic media. I will bring us back to further this conversation. We have so many other things we need to talk about. But gentlemen, thank you for being on Political Spectrum today. And this is how far we can go today. We will continue this program again tomorrow, looking at something, perhaps something else. But from me, it's a goodbye.